Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 134 of Speaking from the Heart. Today we have Maisie Trang as our guest, and Maisie is from a quaint little town in Idaho. She spent years conforming to the expectations of others, living life with a small mindset and loads of negative self-talk. However, her journey took a transformative turn when she granted herself the freedom to dream big, break out of the conventional mold, and liberate herself from the need for validation, even from her cultural roots as a first-generation Asian American. She has realized it's okay to have unconventional dreams and diverge from the norm. Her perspective on life has shifted, viewing the world as unfolding for her, not for others. And I have to say, this is one of the more unique interviews that I've had, as Maisie will talk a little bit about her career as a voiceover actress, something that we haven't had yet on the show. But what we also haven't had was the ability to have a conversation with someone that is challenging her own beliefs, what she has been raised to believe, and to create her own destiny despite any obstacle that might stand in her way. Now, I get it. Many of you might not believe in this manifest destiny or even setting your own tone for what you ultimately can become. But when you listen to her story today about how she's been all right to navigate through some of these healthy alternatives that she has laid out in her life, we can all understand that we are all pieces of work. In other words, maybe pieces of clay if you wanted to have a more visual representation, to being shaped in a variety of different ways. We have to celebrate, though, the ability for us to have that freedom, that choice to express ourselves in more ways than one. And hey, for somebody that has been raised on a farm for most of my life, I can certainly appreciate not only growing up in a small rural community, but also challenging the status quo. Because status quos don't always mean that everything that we're doing is right. It means that we have to work on connection, finding ways in which we can discipline ourselves to have bigger and better aspirations, but also being able to do things that we never thought we could ever do. But with that, let's go to the episode. All right, we're here with Maisie Trang. Maisie, thanks for sharing your heart with us today.
Thank you, Josh. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you're here too. And I have to tell you that with your profession, which I just shared with the audience, you have broken another milestone here at Speaking from the Heart. I love what you do for part of your work, and I will get into it. I don't want to jump the gun, but I want to start off with this because one of the biggest things that stood out to me is that your cultural roots, first generation Asian American, I found that so interesting to point that out. I wonder if you could tell me a little bit, and my listeners, your story about being raised in that sort of environment. What did that mean for you? What did that create for you? What made you, you?
That's a great question, Josh. So, me growing up in a little town in Idaho, it's called Burley, the little city in Idaho. It's a very small town. I think it's a population of about 10,000 people or less. Might have grown since then. But I was born in Twin Falls and then I grew up in Burley. So they're both small towns. So I've been in Idaho, born and raised. And I was pretty much the only Asian, we were the only Asian family pretty much in that city. And there's maybe one or two other families, but we were surrounded by other people who didn't look like us. But I got used to that growing up. I didn't really see it as any different than me being different than them. I just tried to belong, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so growing up, I found that over time, the Asian culture is really known for having high expectations and discipline and hard work in anything. And my parents, they started a business there in the little town. So we became quite popular in our city because they were known for their restaurant, their food in town. They had to really work hard to survive. to make our family the way it is, just the three of us. And I noticed that over time, just as I was growing up, they never expressed any emotions or opinions on anything, and they just did the work that they had to do to survive. And I understood that later on, but I didn't really understand that back then. It's just what they knew, and I respect that, and I love them dearly, of course. But for me, growing up, it was like a split, 3 different worlds in a way, 2 different worlds at least, right? So trying to live in the Asian culture and following the traditions with my family and my parents, but then also trying to follow the traditions in school and learning the way to interact with people in school and hearing the different languages also. So it's just different behavior, right? And I got confused, I think, growing up, and then I became more familiar with it and just said, oh, whatever. So for me, I was just often told by people around me to keep focusing on school, excel at it, get that good job, but I kept being told, don't dream too big. Don't dream too big. Just keep it small, don't have opinions on things, and just do the work that you need to do. So it all had a profound influence on me. And because of that, I grew up thinking I was unworthy, that I wasn't good enough or intelligent enough, and I just asked all these questions about why I even tried to talk about my feelings on things, because I didn't really know how to do that.
I was going to say that I think for some people growing up, we were often stifled from being able to share that. And recently I've had some guests on the show that have talked about the fact that for the male population that we usually are taught at an early age, well, you can't cry, you can't do this, you can't do that. And you bring up something, though, that's very interesting. And I've had a lot of Asian American friends myself growing up in school. They felt almost the same way as you described. They kind of felt like they didn't belong. Maybe they had to conform to what their parents had to say. And you talked a little bit about what those feelings are. But how did you associate with others in school then? I mean, I feel like you were probably still well respected and you had some friends, right?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I didn't really think too much about it, but later on I realized, well, it's almost like anybody else. When you're a kid, you just want to have fun, but then at the same time, you want to fit in with the groups of people and make those friends. And it was hard for me in a way, and it might have been because of the cultural background. I always wanted to spend time with my friends and make sure that I was liked with the people in my classes, but I was always told, okay, no, you can't go to this, you can't go to that. You have to stay home and study and do your homework because that's more important than making friends. And so I had to reevaluate pretty much when I was a kid and then growing up, telling myself, okay, I guess I don't need friends. I'll just do this and get it done and do what's expected of me and not have opinions about it, because that's what I was taught growing up. And it's not anything bad to say about my family, really, because that's really what they knew. So it's nothing bad about them.
Oh, yeah. No, you're not saying anything like that for sure. I'm validating you in that. And for your parents, if they are listening to this, trust me, she is not saying that. And I've worked with a lot of people that definitely are saying the complete opposite. And I would know for a fact. So, Maisie, I validate you with that.
Thanks, Josh. But yeah, no, I just always pretended to be happy, I think, as a kid growing up and even into my college years, just pretending to be happy because that was so much easier than explaining why I wasn't happy and getting all the questions from other family members and friends. And because I was just still recovering from all the things that I haven't expressed. And so it was exhausting to explain why, and it actually felt a little wrong to have to express those emotions or have an opinion on anything because I haven't done that. I haven't really practiced that. So it just didn't feel right. But it makes sense that my self-esteem and confidence just weren't there. And they weren't there for a really long time. And just not knowing what I wanted, I think also, and having to dig deep to find that. And just trying to succeed academically and having a good career to survive like everybody else that I knew. I just kept working really hard because that's what I knew. And I got that academic success, but I felt like deep down there was something else involved, but I didn't know how to manage that until later on.
What would you say was some of the motivation for you to say, I'm not going to follow these precedents that have happened? And what led you to realize that inner confidence in yourself? Because it takes a big step for somebody to be able to say that and wanting to actually put action behind it. Because, I mean, what we're going to get into is the direct opposite, I would say, of what you just described. So what was that catalyst for you to make you turn that switch on and maybe find what was inside of you?
I think I just sat with myself a lot because I was alone a lot. And there was something inside where I just kept getting sad all the time. And I didn't really like where that was. And eventually I got to a low point in my life, and I didn't really talk about that. I haven't talked about that with other people, but in the dark place that I was in, I just didn't want to stay there anymore. And I just really got sick of feeling that way because I always felt that way, and it's almost like the feelings just became numb. And I think with all of that suppression inside of me, it's just like my body just went, let's go. And it just went all out because it wanted to. It was like almost involuntary in a way. And it just completely just released it all. And it felt good. It felt messy. It felt exhausting and somewhat of a relief. But I knew that I needed that. It's just been so long that it's held there. And just to finally release that, oh my goodness, I can't even explain the feeling other than just now. But I just wanted something to change, and because I felt as small as possible at that point in time, nothing else mattered, nobody's opinion mattered anymore, and so I decided to do whatever felt good to me and to just start something. So no matter what anyone else thought, I just said, okay, I'm doing whatever. So it's just strange that it took me to go to that point to make the moves that I did. And I would say that that was the main point to get me there, to make that shift. And even though I didn't really plan on doing that, it just did.
Sometimes it just comes out of nowhere and almost hits you like a train or a car or a bus, which physically that didn't happen to you. So thank goodness it didn't. But metaphorically, it did because it helped you to kind of see that other side of it. And you talk about the low point. I think that many of us get to that low point in a variety of different ways. I know for me, it was overworking, not paying attention to myself, being health conscious. I mean, now I work in my coaching business to help others to kind of see what those warning signs, those triggers are so that they don't fall into those same traps like I did. It's really good to have that perspective because sometimes some people don't know what those signs are. But was the catalyst what you do, which I'm getting into now, which is your voiceovers and also being an actress? I saw this and I'm like all fascinated. And for my listeners, I said to Maisie before we started that I had no idea about a lot of these things until I started to explore her website. And I was so fascinated by the work that she's done, not only for commercials, but other things. So was it because of this? Like that was what you were looking to do? Is that your calling?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's really my calling quite yet, but I can say that for some reason I just needed something to express myself and my voice and my thoughts. And this turned out to be a really good avenue to do that. I was able to learn how to control my emotions, release them more, and express myself and be authentic. So it was a really great outlet. And honestly, Josh, I'd never planned on that either. I just wanted to do something that was different. And I fell into this because I just was searching for, okay, what are some creative things that I can do? And this is something that came up and I gave it a shot. I tried it and I loved it. And I loved how it made me feel. And so I just kept going with that. But yeah, there was a hesitation at the beginning because of all those previous thoughts coming back again. But then I was like, it doesn't really matter at this point. I just want to try it out. And it's led me to this point where it feels good to grant myself that freedom to dream big no matter what anybody else says or thinks. And I think just having this new way of thinking really allowed me to just continue to do that because it feels right. It feels good to do this.
Wow. I think you don't even realize what you're saying right now is so powerful because it takes great courage and fortitude to be able to pull yourself out and say, I want to do something that's fun. I want to do something that's for me. I mean, not many people, Macy, nowadays, even across the world, because I have international listeners as well,
Yeah.
that are willing to say that. So you got to give yourself some more credit. I think.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm totally impressed. I'll give you an example why I'm impressed. And for my listeners, if you go to Macy's website, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But I played your commercial demo reel before I got on tonight listening to this. And I loved all the variety of different products, all the different things that you pitched. Your voice is so calming. I almost felt like for 3 minutes or whatever, how long it was. No, it wasn't 3 minutes. The poem was 3 minutes, but the commercial demo reel that you have for a little over a minute made me feel like, wow, this lady is so talented. And I don't even know she recognized it now that I'm hearing your story. So I have to ask you this because for many people, maybe just to set the groundwork for this conversation, many people probably don't even know what a voiceover is in terms of what that falls into in the commercial world, let alone how you even get into it. So I'm wondering if, just for your perspective, can you share a little bit about, first off, how you got into this? And then secondly, how you got some of the people that you got to work with on some of these commercials as voiceovers? How did you achieve those?
Yeah. So with voiceover, I first took a webinar, I believe, a local webinar that was available. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, am I really going to do this? And I said to myself, well, it's not going to hurt to just learn something. So I enrolled in that class, that webinar, and it allowed to give an introduction to the profession and the industry. And then they allowed like a free evaluation on your voice and performance with that webinar. So I did that, and they told me that I actually passed that evaluation. And I think just from that evaluation experience, it basically encouraged me and told me, okay, well, maybe this is a possibility for me to continue on. So it started from there. And then after that, I wanted to know more information, right? I just kept going. It's like I started it and now I'm like, oh, I want to keep finding the pieces to make this work now. But I wanted to do it the right way. I wanted to make sure that I'm doing this correctly because I think every industry, you can always learn mistakes from other people and just learning how to do it the correct way.
Yes.
So after that, I just sought out other people online, and I found out that there was someone else who was a pharmacist, which I relate to because I'm a pharmacist by training. So I talked with her, and she did voiceovers as well. And that inspired me to continue that way, too. So
my mouth is dropping open here. A pharmacist group essentially doing voiceovers. This blows my mind. Keep going. I love this.
I know, it blew my mind too. I was like, wow, there is somebody else out there.
Yeah.
And so we talked, and she encouraged me to try it out. And so I did, and I basically took off from there. So I joined different groups. I went to a conference that was specifically for voiceover, but I wasn't used to that. I was used to more pharmacist, professional conferences, and going to this voiceover conference was totally different for me. And networking with people that way in this kind of creative space, it just felt really good. It felt fun. It felt just really nice to know other people in the industry who are really kind in the voiceover community. And I took lessons. I was coached, trained, and still right now I'm still enrolled in the different groups, and I'm going to another voiceover conference here coming up. So that, and just learning from the different experts in the field. And eventually, you kind of get to know one another because we're a pretty small group, even though there's thousands among thousands of voice actors. But for some reason, it still feels like a really small community. in a way. And we're really supportive of each other. And if we wanted to learn more, there's always those different groups on social media that have industry experts in those and that provide a lot of the guidance and direction that's helpful for newcomers who want to learn more.
It's so cool to just see such a small group. I love what you're doing. Sorry for our listeners. You just did a little happy dance. It's like, yeah, I'm doing what I'm doing. And those are the happy dances that I like seeing from some of my clients when they see that success, like, I am doing it now. But you have a lot of different things underneath your belt with what you've done so far. I've seen therapy voiceovers you've done for some commercials. I've seen some for healthcare providers. I was listening to Panda Express. I listened to one of those. You have reached all kinds of different types of gambits with it. And I have to ask, because I think this is an awesome question for me. And like I said, you're my very first person on the show to have that has done voiceover acting. What would you say was your favorite one to do thus far out of your huge portfolio that I'm sure you have? I know,
really
that's a tough question.
Yeah, that is a tough question. Honestly, I don't have a single favorite one, but I can say that I really, really enjoyed the mental health space service that I did, the mental health project that I did with them. It just felt good to do that, to help tell the story, to help give something meaningful, to send that message to people that it's okay to have mental health services and to talk about that. It just felt really, really good and meaningful.
What would you say is one of the reasons why you continue to build upon your confidence in doing voiceovers? Because let's face it, let's integrate the conversation we had earlier into this. You had reached a low point. You wanted to figure out what those things are in your life. That's what you were saying in terms of the expectations. Do you set yourself high expectations with this now, or do you try to have fun with it?
I thought about this before. I'm like, am I going back to what I was before in a way, just in a different version of it? I think I do set myself high expectations, but I think it's in a more healthy way than before. I think that's because I'm more in tune with my authentic self, and by doing that, it feels much better. It feels right. And I think for anybody listening, if you've ever experienced that before, you'll know that it's the right thing for you when you're doing something that aligns with your spirit and yourself. And even though it's setting high expectations for you, you know it's okay because it's not in a very toxic way. It's in a very supportive, growth, inspiring type of way. And I think that's what makes it feel right.
Having that feeling of what is right and sometimes knowing what is wrong. Sometimes we put that shade, those rose-colored glasses on so that we don't see what's wrong. And I will say to you, even at my age, which I'm over 37 now, I have still been dealing with a lot of those sort of expectations and trying to pull those down. And I think that for all of us, we're always going through that exercise. And you saying what you're saying, it makes sense to me that for all these kinds of people that we have in our lives coming in, coming out, maybe they have to be able to work really hard to get what they need. For others, it might just come easy to them. And I think you're in this path of figuring out what is coming easy to you so that you can enjoy what's fulfilling. So with that said, you are essentially, as you said in your bio, you're trying to break that mold, that conventional mold. Do you think you're doing that? I mean, do you think that you're honestly, earnestly doing that? And if so, do you think there's a lot more work that you have to do to continue breaking that mold? Because, yeah, there's one thing to break it, but you could be unintentionally reshaping it into a completely different shape that you might be setting yourself up. So what's your safeguard?
That's a good point. It's probably more of like reshaping it in a way. I think there's, of course, plenty of work to do to keep on reshaping it because of the work that I'm in now, doing acting and voice acting and trying to be a pharmacist as well. And doing my day job and everything. There's still a lot of misconceptions or a lot of thoughts that come to mind when other people, when I try to explain it, that it's just not a typical thing for an Asian person to do or a pharmacist to do. And that's one of the ways I feel like when I'm working on these kinds of projects, it helps me know that I'm supporting and influencing that change and reshaping it and educating people that you can be more than a pharmacist, you can be more than an artist, you can be many things. Sometimes you may be better at one thing at a given moment, but you can be all the things, just maybe not at the same time. You'll probably be working on one thing and enhancing that at a given moment, but you can also be an actor or a voice actor or some other type of artist, and that's okay. That's okay. But I think a lot of us are afraid to pursue those other passions that we might have because of what other people think, and that's stopping us from doing anything. At least that's the way it was for me before.
This is a really important question. Are you getting in your own way now?
I think right now, not as much. Not as much now. Before, yes, growing up. In college, I just told myself to stay low, stay small, don't try anything else. Just get that good job, succeed, survive, and have the family be proud. But now, not as much. Not in that same way, at least. Right now, what's really getting in the way is having enough time to do everything. But yeah.
That's always the age-old question for even business owners, for sure. What am I going to do with the finite time I have every day? Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I think it's a special thing, too. For me, I really love doing this because I found that I love creating projects and telling the stories that need to be told and having people think in a different way. It just feels really meaningful to me to work on these kinds of projects, knowing that I helped create those and that could potentially impact other people to think in a different way.
Potentially. There has to be hundreds of thousands of people that listen to your voice, especially being on commercials. You got to be kidding me, Maisie. You are so still underselling yourself here. I'm like sitting here and I'm thinking, my gosh, I wish I had some of her talents because she has such a calm, soothing voice. And I'm like big, rough and gruff over here with big,
But we need that
voice.
too, Josh. So you've got that.
Okay, well, good. Can I be hired as a voice actor then? What do you think?
You probably could. Yes.
Yes. Listeners, adios. I will no longer be doing any episodes after tonight because of Maisie. She has given me the recommendation, the green light to keep moving forward.
That's right. Triple green lights.
Woohoo! Let's see, now I'm doing my happy dance over here too. So, Maisie, we're almost out of time, but I want to ask you this final question. And I've been really enlightened by this conversation. I got to tell you, like a quaint little town in Idaho had this wonderful lady that was being able to bless me on this show today and share a good piece of her story and what you have done. What's ahead for you? What do you see as that big picture down the road that not only would I like you to answer what it means for you, but what would it mean for my listeners listening too? Meaning, what would you give them as advice for being able to dream big and, as you put it, shift your perspective on life?
Right. For me, I think what's ahead is to keep on being my authentic self and at least trying to maybe not be at the 100% perfection authenticity mode, whatever that may be, wherever that may be. But it's more of like encouraging others to embrace and celebrate the various aspects of their identity and their life, because you can have multifaceted things that you enjoy. Everyone has unique and diverse aspects to their personalities and to their desires and the ways that they want to express that. So just acknowledging that and integrating all of that, all your feelings, and being okay and celebrating that about yourself. I think that's something important for us to realize And I really wish everyone listening to really reflect on that and embracing that for yourself.
Embracing that is always a big part of that process. Being able to feel like you're in control of it, being able to say, yes, I
Yeah.
have this feeling, I'm going to accept it. And you said something that I even say to my clients, so you make me feel validated, is that you don't have to be 100% all the time. So for my active clients right now listening to this, listen to her. She's saying something I've been telling you, and that's what's really important.
Yeah, it sounds easy sometimes when we're saying it, and I understand it can be hard to do. And I think one of the important things we can do is really surrounding yourself with people that support you and serve you, saying yes to things that serve you, saying no to things that don't, so that it leaves space for the things that do serve you.
So true. Just so true. And I think that if we don't surround ourselves with that, that's what sometimes creates the unfavorable impressions, the
Right.
low points in our life. Macy, I love that you've transformed yourself. I want to give you the last few minutes as a result of doing that to pitch yourself. I would love for you to tell my listeners how could they get in contact with you if they're interested in having a project, maybe a voiceover done with you. You have a nice calming voice throughout this half hour. I feel a little bit more sleepier than I did when I
Oh,
started.
gosh.
Yeah.
No, don't fall asleep.
Oh, no, don't worry. We'll get it through the rest of this. I'm wondering if you could let them know how they can get in contact with you, but I'm going to give you the last few minutes. Go ahead, pitch yourself.
Okay, thank you, Josh. If you like to work with me as an actor or a voiceover actor, you can go to my website. It's MaisieTrang.com, so it's MaisieTrang.com. And all of my contact information and demos and samples are available there. And you'll also see that I can do commercials, meditations, e-learning tutorials, different narration pieces, including medical narration, and explaining different products or even podcasts. And I'm also available on Facebook at Maisie Trang, and then X or Twitter at Maisie Trang, and then Instagram at Maisie.Trang. And then I guess a final piece, I never mentioned this, but I'm also trying to teach a computer basics program because I do some technology work at work. So I have that available, and if you'd like to enroll in a computer basics program at all, I have a free intro call that you can talk with me more about what you need help with, and you can just email me at maisietrang@gmail.com, and we can talk from there and talk over the phone after that.
I'll put all that information in the episode notes in case anybody wants to check out and reach out to Maisie. But I have to say, look, and I don't normally do this, and I feel like I almost lecture when I do this, but you're one of these guests that I just have to give you a quick little pep talk before we wrap up. So I hope you're accepting of this, and you can yell at me later if you don't like it. But here's the thing. You grew up in a community almost like I did. I grew up in a small town called Oley, Oley. It's in Pennsylvania. It's this quaint little town about an hour away from Philadelphia because we were talking about how far away I was from other locations when we started. But I also had this feeling that I was just not doing what I needed to do in life. And I put that off, get ready, for over 30 some years until I finally realized I needed to open a business and help others because I was not doing what I needed to do in life. So I'm helping people figure out what the junk is in their life and getting it fixed. I'm helping people with their speaking. I'm helping people get better jobs with professional development. I do all kinds of things. And I even trying to break into the public speaking realm by being a professional speaker. And it isn't that I'm trying. I am. So I want you from now on today, say, I am a voice actor. I am a voiceover artist. I am the best in the industry. And I tell you, you don't have to go around and tell people that. But if that's your daily affirmation getting up, Maisie, I swear to you, I swear that you will do so much good work like you're doing already because you are doing some awesome work. And I would love that we talk at some point down the road and you tell me that, yes, I've broken into this. I'm no longer doing pharmacy work. I'm doing this for big time corporate entities with their commercials. So make me that promise that next time we talk, you're going to keep believing on yourself. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that pep talk. Yeah. No, I love that. I love pep talks. Yes, of course. I try to practice different affirmations a day. I haven't done the I am a voiceover actor, but I have done I am grateful today. Like
Well, you
all
should be
those.
grateful too.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And for all those reasons, and for you continuing on your journey, thanks for being on Speaking from the Heart. It was really a joy and a privilege to have not only my very first voiceover artist on the show, but to know somebody with your deep heart and your deep story. You definitely were your authentic self. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Josh.
I want to thank Maisie so much for being part of the show. She shows to me, just like we had with other guests, the importance of being able to have that small town living feeling, but also being able to have big aspirations. It's almost coming out of a movie directly if you think about Maisie's story, in that sometimes we have a lot of different setbacks, a lot of different people that come into our lives, influence us, but yet at the same time, they have all kinds of different problems, situations, and other aspects that might throw a wrench into the overall plans that we have for our lives. But I think that we also have great role models when it comes to not only working with the variety of different people that surround us, but it allows us to be more disciplined. The expectations that we have for each other can be measured in ways that sometimes we don't even think about. But at the same time, maybe those limits, those things that we have as some of the lowest points of our lives, might not be what we want to do. And that's when we resist. We often fight back because we don't want to live up to those expectations that we are given. In other words, do you do that work that you have to do in order to survive, to connect, to follow tradition? Or are you doing the work that allows you to live free, to have aspirations and dreams that you never thought possible, and it allows you to think outside the box? Many guests that we've had on the show have even talked about the importance of focusing, creating that value in our lives, just so that we can influence not only the positivity, but also the variety of different things that we have in store for our lives, if we're just willing to connect with what those opportunities are, instead of just focusing on what is in front of us. It means being proactive. It means thinking about how we can have a voice in this ever-changing world to change our perspectives. But even with trying to shake, rattle, and roll through our lives, how do we fit in? What makes it really hard for us to be liked, especially when we're challenging that status quo? Because let's face it, if we do those things, we might not be liked. We might not be appreciated. And truthfully, we might not even be able to work through some of the problems, some of the situations, or even achieve some of the outcomes that we need to have in order to just survive. So how do we do that? Is it really hard to be able to step outside of our comfort zone, to be liked, to be enjoyed, especially with all the things that we have going on? Well, if you think about it, the rules, the breakthroughs, the things that we're trying to do in our lives to support one another, whether it's friends, family, or something else, it means that we have to understand that just fitting in might not always be the solution. So what's that catalyst? Let's get to the heart of really what this is all about. How do we create that catalyst so that we can have the things that we want to have in our lives be achievable? How can we do that to be able to achieve some of the best dreams, some of the best versions that we have yet to unlock in our life? I think that we need to understand that we need to express ourselves and control our emotions in ways in which we can not only achieve those successes, but also understand that not everybody's going to see our viewpoint. Maisie shared so much about what those differing viewpoints are, and even creates that context about how we can be more talented, more invaluable, by just simply understanding what our differences are, by learning and leaning into what might be our gifts. But the best way that we could ever do what we ultimately want to do in our lives means that we have to be able to jump into any career that we want to. We have to be mentored. We have to learn from others, because we certainly don't want to jump into any sort of field, whether it's being a nuclear scientist, a rocket scientist, maybe even a blinker scientist, which, yes, I'm making a joke about headlights and blinker fluid. I think that we all have to understand that if any of those sort of occupations, make believe or not, we have to be able to learn. We have to be able to be mentored in ways in which we can jump into those careers and be successful at the same time. But that also means that we can't be afraid of what we are ultimately able to become. Look at my life. Look at all the things that I've been able to achieve simply by stepping outside my comfort zone. Does it mean that I have it all together? The answer is no. I still have to work through a variety of different situations on a daily basis. And we have to be able to work through those problems by the knowledge, skills, and abilities that we've talked about on many episodes that allows us to feel empowered. But even with jumping into it, when people might be looking at you strangely, especially because you are doing something that is outside the comfort zone, it's okay to still have fun. It's okay to have healthy avenues in your life that allow you to not only propel yourself to that next level, but we are also able to create some of those opportunities that maybe are still being shaped. Because even as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, it's still okay to be a piece of work, being able to be shaped into whatever that final product will be. But it means that we need to continue to express the things that we really enjoy and not suppress them. Maisie shared even some of those important lessons to us as to why we should never hold ourselves back from our limited potential, especially if we had something that we always wanted to pursue. Even voice acting, for that matter. Doing voiceovers for commercials. Who would have ever thought in a million years that this young lady would be able to achieve so much with not only the things that she's learned growing up, but to reinvent herself despite what the culture and society might have told her otherwise. And that's exactly why you shouldn't put yourself down. You shouldn't say no to opportunities that might come up. But it's also understanding that there is a balance. And despite what anybody might tell you, even if that is the buzz phrase of the year, to have a work-life balance, it's still very true that you should try to strive to it as much as you possibly can, but also not indulging too much in one particular form or another. So the question then becomes, are you going to stay low, not even acknowledge some of the opportunities that you have, or are you going to keep on putting your head down, always ignoring what might be around you because society and culture told you otherwise? We have to celebrate the various aspects of our lives and accept the feelings that are tied to it. It's okay to be scared and fearful, especially if you're jumping into something brand new. It's not easy sometimes being a business owner, especially in this tumultuous climate that we're in right now, both economically and financially, seeing businesses close all around me and cutting back. But I know that the heart and passion that I have deep inside of me, wanting to keep this adventure going for myself and working through all the variety of different viewpoints that might come my way, really empower me and want to empower my clients to become the best versions of themselves. But it means that I have to surround myself with people that are continuously working on themselves and continuously challenging the status quo. Now, I could easily go into a tirade about all the different things that might be holding us back as a society, whether that is the social, the cultural, the different expectations that are put upon each and every one of us, whether it's through friends, family, jobs, all kinds of other aspects. But the truth of the matter is that if we're ever going to grow individually, we have to, at some point, listen to what's inside of us. How we fit in does not always mean that we have to fit in. Let me say that again. How we fit in doesn't always matter. Period. Because even if we did try to fit in, does it mean that we're actually living that best version of ourselves? If we're restricting ourselves with just rules and different avenues where we have to follow, and that's not really what we want to follow in the first place, how are we ever going to create change? How are we going to be able to become those talented and valuable individuals that can jump into any career or any sort of adventure that we ever want to? I started listening to this podcast that follows a couple that are traveling digital nomads. I would love to have Austin and Monica on the show at some point in which they talk about how they started this adventure. But I'm in awe and wonder of how they've been able to create value for themselves by simply diffusing what society and culture says about them. They are shaping the clay that allows them to become not only more valuable, but allows them to become more acknowledged and more attuned to what they have as undeniable freedoms, undeniable opportunities to go around the world and live a life where they can still support themselves, but also do things that normal 20, 30, or even 40-year-olds would never dream possible. But even if you're in your 60s, 70s, and 80s, even if you believe in a completely different work ethic, know that it's not about just keeping your head down. No, it isn't just about trying to think differently. It means that we have to be mentored. We have to learn to understand that we need to create a culture that not only supports one another, but also supports ourselves. I believe Maisie's story today really exemplifies the fact that we have to not only lean into our traditions, but how we can use those traditions to our advantage to create things that we never, ever thought possible. If we're able to do that, and if we're able to express ourselves in ways in which we would never be able to express ourselves before, if we're able to delimit ourselves to create the opportunities that we have, especially now and in the future, I think we're not going to stay low. I think that we're not going to put our head down. I think we're going to change our healthy avenues into even more exciting adventures. Because even if we're traveling all across the world, or if we're in that small little cubicle in a office that we are always looking to see what's ahead of us, just know that each of us have an entitlement, an empowerment, if you will, to create the best versions of ourselves by simply speaking out loud and affirming ourselves that anything is possible. Thanks for listening to episode number 134 of Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.